Welcome to A Closer Look, the podcast that looks into the stories behind American traditions. I'm Anna, and with me is my co-host Marcus. Today, we're exploring the origins, controversies, and current meaning of Labor Day. Marcus, let's get started.
Let's do it, Anna. Labor Day may evoke visions of barbecues, parades, or perhaps the bittersweet end of summer, but at its core, it's a holiday about people and work, the workers who built and sustained the United States through determination and hardship.
That's right. Labor Day as a federal holiday began in 1894, but the drive for a holiday honoring workers started earlier in the labor unions of 19th century America. The first Labor Day parade actually took place in New York City on September 5th, 1882.
Imagine tens of thousands of workers, bricklayers, typographers, cloak makers, and more, marching through Manhattan. It wasn't a paid day off. These were workers risking a day's wages to come together for a cause: better working conditions, shorter hours, and dignity in labor.
That parade, organized by New York Central Labor Union, culminated with picnics, fiery speeches, fireworks, and a communal spirit that represented a turning point in labor organization. It showed what collective action could accomplish.
Now, Labor Day is always observed on the first Monday in September. There's some debate about who actually suggested making this a holiday. Some sources credit Peter J. McGuire, a prominent union leader and co-founder of the American Federation of Labor, who reportedly proposed a general holiday for the laboring classes. But others point to Matthew McGuire, a machinist and union secretary from New Jersey, as the real originator.
It's a case of McGuire versus McGuire. Both played major roles in organizing early parades, and the debate reflects the vibrant and sometimes competitive spirit among labor leaders. What matters is that the growing labor movement saw a need for recognition.
The date itself was strategic. Peter McGuire, if we go by his account, suggested September because it's roughly halfway between Independence Day and Thanksgiving. September's temperate weather and lack of other major holidays also made it ideal for parades and outdoor gatherings.
To appreciate why this holiday mattered and still matters, it's important to look at working conditions in the late 1800s. Factory, railroad, and mine workers, including children, often labored over 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Accidents, exploitation, and child labor were common. Unions gave workers a voice, paving the way for improved conditions and new legal protections.
Before unions, there were no standardized hours, no job safety requirements, no wage regulations. Workers could be dismissed or even harmed with no recourse. Young children toiled beside adults in dangerous environments. In this context, Labor Day wasn't just a holiday, it was a proclamation of rights.
After that initial parade in New York, the idea spread rapidly. By 1887, Oregon became the first state to declare Labor Day a legal holiday. Within a few years, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, and Colorado followed suit. By 1894, more than 30 states were officially celebrating the day.
But it was a crisis that truly pushed Labor Day onto the federal stage. In 1894, a huge strike shook the country, the Pullman strike. When workers at the Pullman Railcar Company protested harsh wage cuts, the strike grew and railway traffic nationwide was paralyzed. Federal troops were called in and violence erupted, with several workers losing their lives.
President Grover Cleveland saw the need to restore peace with the labor movement. In June 1994, Congress rushed through a bill declaring Labor Day a national holiday, and Cleveland signed it into law. It was intended to honor workers and help reconcile with the labor movement, which had gained public sympathy after the tragedy of the Pullman strike.
It's worth noting that some historians view the choice of September for Labor Day as politically strategic. International Workers' Day, or May Day, observed on May 1st, was associated with more radical labor activism and even sometimes revolutionary movements abroad and within the United States.
Cleveland and other leaders may have wanted an American labor holiday devoid of more militant or socialist associations.
So, in a sense, September's Labor Day offered a less controversial, more inclusive way to honor labor, focusing on unity rather than protest. But both holidays ultimately commemorate the push for fair wages, decent hours, and safe workplaces.
Labor Day also gives us an opportunity to reflect on other pivotal moments and movements in American labor history. Centuries before 1882, America's labor force included enslaved people whose centuries of resistance, both small and large, laid a foundation for future worker rights struggles. One example is the Stono Rebellion of 1739, an uprising of enslaved Africans seeking liberty and dignity.
In later years, organized labor strikes and protests led to significant reforms. The Haymarket Riot of 1886, for example, began as a peaceful rally for an 8-hour workday, but ended in violence and tragedy. This event further galvanized union organizing and ultimately contributed to public pressure for labor protections.
And the great strikes of the 20th century, from miners to auto workers, further improved wages, working hours, and job security. Each Labor Day, these stories remind us that progress was hard-won and is never finished.
Over time, the character of Labor Day began to change. As working conditions improved, the holiday shifted from protest to celebration. Parades, picnics, and family outings became traditions, and for many, the day unofficially marks the end of summer.
Yet, many communities still hold parades and events that highlight the strength and solidarity of unions. Some churches even observe Labor Sunday the day before, as a time to reflect on the spiritual and ethical dimensions of work and workers' rights.
Today, Labor Day is a time when schools and government offices close, and millions get a well-deserved day off. But its origins as a day of unity, sacrifice, and the pursuit of dignity in work should not be forgotten.
The federal holiday applies to all government workers, and most private employers also observe it. America's workforce has changed significantly. Unions once represented around a third of all workers. Now, the proportion is much smaller. Yet, issues of fair wages, safe conditions, and job security remain as relevant as ever. New movements like the campaigns for living wages or gig worker protections echo the labor struggles of the past.
At its core, Labor Day is about respect for workers' contributions and for the values of equality, fairness, and unity that protect livelihoods. Understanding its history brings deeper meaning to the last lazy day of summer.
And as the nature of work changes with remote work, technology, and globalization, Labor Day prompts us to ask, what rights, protections, and contributions should we honor now and in the future? Each generation brings new forms of labor and new hopes for justice in the workplace.
So this Labor Day, while enjoying a cookout or a parade, consider the legacy left by those early workers who risked so much for rights we take for granted today. Their actions shaped not just the holiday, but the very landscape of American working life.
And remember, honoring work is about more than a day off. It's about acknowledging the sacrifices and victories of those who came before and staying committed to fairness and dignity for all workers, past and present.
Thank you for listening to A Closer Look. Have a safe and meaningful Labor Day.
Until next time, keep asking questions and seeking the stories that shape our world.